My name is Abbas. I am a research fellow here at the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Our webinar for today is on capturing the youth dividend and the role of counseling and mentorship in particular. PIDE has been doing quite a lot of work on this topic. Dr. Zunaira's research recently came out documenting all the problems that the youth is currently facing with unemployment rates extremely high. A lot of the population within the certain age group that isn't working, and they're not studying either. In other words, they're essentially disconnected from the economy. And all of these issues are leading to a sort of like lack of direction, a lack of meaning and purpose and fulfillment within the youth. And this is true even for me, despite the fact that I had a certain amount of privilege. I went to LUMS and so on. Life after graduation was extremely sort of haphazard in the sense that I constantly had to like improvise as I went along. I didn't really have like certain people to go to ask for guidance and so on about how to move forward. And I'm fairly certain that this is true across the board for most people. We also sort of have this sort of restrictive culture in Pakistan where parents don't allow their kids to pursue what they're really interested in. We have like 2 or 3 professions that we sort of like force our kids into, engineering and medicine and so on. I want to thank everyone on the panel for being with us today. This has been a long time coming, so I appreciate it. So we have Neda Mulji, who's the Senior Manager of Professional Development at Oxford University Press. We have Dr. Zunaira Saqib, who is the founder and CEO of MeraFuture. MeraFuture is this platform that focuses on career counseling, aptitude testing, and so on for the youth. We have Ambassador Salahuddin Choudhry, former ambassador. We have Shua Khalid, who is the CEO and co-founder of Atomcamp. They've been running a series of short courses, particularly with a sort of vocational lens. And I'm very excited to hear from Shua today. And we have Khurram, Elahi, lecturer, PIDE, a good friend of mine, also a motivational speaker. So how we can go about this conversation today is the first round could sort of be where we go one by one, and I want you to sort of like describe a little bit about yourself, some background. I want to start with Shua. I know you're short on time, so please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, Abbas, and thank you so much for inviting me among such honorable guests. So like just about just a brief introduction about myself, and then we can get to the topic. I'm the CEO and co-founder for Atomcamp, which is basically an online continuous learning platform. Our goal with this particular platform is to fill in the gap in university education, and I think that is the crux of the topic today as well. That like because universities are not teaching the skills necessary for the youth to secure employment, so we're trying to, in our very little way, fill in that gap. The other focus of our organization is actually on women entrepreneurship and encouraging mostly home-based women entrepreneurs to enter employment. My personal background is that I'm a Fulbright scholar with a master's in public affairs from Indiana University, and like you, I'm also a LUMS graduate of 2016. So just coming back to the topic, so obviously there's like absolutely like no question that youth do need counseling and mentorship. और I think कि जब से मैंने यूनिवर्सिटी से ग्रेजुएट किया तब से ही ये क्वेश्चन जो है वो चल रहा है, और इससे पहले भी चल रहा होगा कि like and it's surprising like how we have our institutions have actually failed to do enough about it, despite this very, very pressing problem that whenever you graduate from a university or college or jo bhi, and you have absolutely like no idea कि अच्छा अब मैं आगे क्या करूं. So educational institutions, I feel, do have a major role to play in this. और इसका सिर्फ ये मतलब नहीं है कि आप बस कोई educational counselor hire कर दो स्कूल में या यूनिवर्सिटी में और फिर आप समझो कि like I fulfilled my responsibility as an institution. I think the biggest flaw is just like in the structure. The structure is like so rigid कि for example अगर आप या तो बच्चों को push करते हो towards pure sciences या फिर pure business, and there's like no in between. या फिर मतलब 8 साल बेचारे जो है वो बहुत ही छोटी percentage होती है. And even that, is not the first preference of parents. So like there's also this parental pressure ki like, nahi, you go towards like doctors, engineers, like business, accounting, finance वगैरह की तरफ जाया जाए. और उस पे भी like एक तो societal थोड़ा सा awareness create करने की जरूरत है, but that's a longer debate. Like what we can do as, like university structures के ऊपर, like there's no room for experimentation. So you're like forced to like declare a major just like a year after you enter university. उस वक्त आपको कुछ पता भी नहीं होता कि आपके साथ क्या हो रहा है. Like what is your passion? आपको कोई chance नहीं मिलता उसको discover करने का. And as a result, by the end of those 4 years, you're still clueless, and you're still clueless plus unable to actually perform those skills in practical life which you were supposed to learn in university. So Atomcamp basically, जैसे for example शुरू करने का मकसद ये था कि like आपके जो भी graduates होते हैं, like myself included, like we don't actually have the practical skills which the employers require, and employers don't actually want to invest in training you. They want कि अच्छा इसको थोड़ा बहुत कुछ आता हो. And like I come from a very privileged background in that sense कि मतलब मैं LUMS की graduate हूँ, उसके बाद Fulbright पे गई, ये वो, मतलब a lot of people are not, a huge majority of people are not that fortunate. आप public universities में अगर जाके देखें तो like you would find like an even smaller percentage of people who can even put a sentence together. Communication, मतलब basic जो चीजें ना, like I'm not even talking about technical skills at this point. Like soft skills की इतनी जो है वो कमी है कि you cannot present your point of view like correctly. Verbally, orally, जो है वो oral skills की deficiency है, communication की in written form deficiency है in students, and like all of these things come from connection with the outside world while you are at university. So like that needs to happen. Like the linkage between university education and the public or private sector outside, that is missing. क्योंकि अगर आपको पहले से ही वो students के साथ वो connection भी करते हैं अगर आप, so even that becomes a source of mentorship. The other thing is like access to technology, which is obviously accelerated by COVID, has opened up a lot of room for learning beyond the classroom walls. So for example, like Atomcamp ke upar we offer online courses, but then what is the percentage of people who actually have access to this? So only 54% of people in Pakistan actually have access to internet. और उनमें से भी आप सोचें कि कितनी small percentage होगी ऐसे लोगों की who have the ability and the drive to actually search for additional learning opportunities. So like the primary role then is not these जो हम कहते हैं कि these stopgap measures कि आप जो है वो for institutions like क्या कहते हैं for the private sector. So like the major responsibility is private and public educational institutions, I feel. So that was my take on it. Abbas, over to you.
Yes, for sure. I definitely agree. And besides educational institutions, I think we need to sort of go beyond thinking about it in that sort of like narrow sort of lens. I know that Atomcamp has also been hosting these sort of weekly book sessions at Saeed Book Bank, which I've attended a couple of. And so these sort of initiatives, a little less formal, where you can sort of ignite a sense of curiosity, a sense of, getting people to ask questions about interesting topics that, scholars are writing about all over the world. I think that's also a very good initiative that Atomcamp is doing. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, so iska bhi jo hai the basic, the reason for, starting that was कि लोगों में जो है ना वो learning की drive create करना कि अच्छा like this is a different topic. So for example, अगर मुझे किसी चीज का नहीं पता, so I would be very clueless as to like how do I progress about learning it? Like what kind of books should I read? What kind of areas should I explore? And I think that book hour jo hai, that absolutely it's for anyone and everyone to like learn about different perspectives, different areas. And that is just to create that drive for learning, that creating that curiosity for learning. So I think that's a very successful initiative in that sense कि बड़ी अच्छी community जो है वो वहाँ पे build हो गई है of people who want to learn, who value like different perspectives, and I hope that we can take that at a bigger scale as well.
Yes, 100%. We talk about civil society all the time, and I feel like we've sort of equated it with a political sort of lens. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Civil society constitutes everything from book clubs to theater groups and all sorts of other things. And I think we need to really focus on that as well. I'd like to bring Neda Mulji in at this point. Neda, are you with us? Would you like to comment on these developments with the youth?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum Abbas. Thank you for inviting me. I was listening to Shua, and it's really interesting to hear about the possibilities that we haven't explored with regard to partnerships, as Shua mentioned, between universities and the private sector, specifically industry. So how can we create those linkages between universities and industry? And as you mentioned earlier, we have to improvise as we go along. Now, my question is, why should our students have to improvise as they go along? There has to be some kind of mechanism to provide them with direction or provide them with some kind of structured mentorship for them to be able to set their goals. And what kind of influences and what kind of inspiration are they looking for? And those are the questions that I feel we need to answer for the youth to be able to cash in on their university education. Shua also spoke about soft skills. We have communication, we have interpersonal skills, interview skills, for example. When they go for jobs, do they have the skills to go through an interview and actually address the questions and express themselves as clearly and precisely as is expected of them? Can they join a team and work as a team player and add value to the team? Can they address a conflict? Do they have the skills for conflict resolution? Do they have the resilience and the grit that's required to be in the industry? So my question is, do we in Pakistan not have jobs for the youth, or do we have jobs but have youth that don't have the skills to be able to handle those jobs? And my feeling is that it's the latter. We do have jobs, but when we talk about a whopping 31.2% unemployment rate among the age group, which is between 15 years and 29 years. Now, that's really alarming in terms of the implications that it has for the next generation and for the future of the country. So how do we address this gap between skills and content? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Do we teach content first and then address the skills? Or do the students at very young levels in the early years require skills that they can build upon to unravel the content that is presented to them? Because textbooks are not going anywhere. Textbooks are really important. Content has always been important and always will be, but traditional education has focused mainly on content and less so on skills. And I think we're paying the price for it. And to address the second part of what we were talking about, besides the skills, if our students could just surround themselves with people who can inspire them, who can share stories with them, perhaps find someone who's tread the path that you want to be on, so that we can learn from their mistakes and we can get a bit of help exploring or charting out a course that we want to follow, not necessarily get advice and suggestions from them, but just for vision, to formulate a vision or to get inspired by someone whose footsteps we'd like to follow in. We need those kind of role models. Do universities provide those role models? I know many teachers like yourself, who would do this on a daily basis in an informal way for their students. And I know many teachers like that. Students are very driven, the teachers are very hardworking, but do we have processes in place to do it in a structured sort of way? So that's the other thing. And then the third part of it is decision making. How do students make decisions about their careers halfway through their university days? Now, as Shua said, they're not the only decision makers. They have families that decide what they should study and what they should not be studying. And within that family context, it's very difficult to make everyone happy and cash in on your skills and your interests at the same time. Do we have processes in place that can help students crystallize their goals and make decisions for themselves? So yeah, I think I've spoken enough about a lot of things.
Thank you so much, Neda. I really like that you brought up the aspect of decision making. I want to bring in Dr. Zunaira Saqib here because her platform really works on this. I think it's a sort of one of a kind, sort of almost unprecedented sort of initiative in Pakistan. It's called MeraFuture. Dr. Zunaira, would you like to comment a little bit on the work you folks have been doing? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and very nice hearing from other speakers as well. Basically, I'm the founder of MeraFuture.pk, and MeraFuture is a career counseling company. Essentially, what we do is we do an AI-based aptitude testing. So we help students decide which degree they should choose, which career they should choose at the high school level. So I think all of us have a story of how we chose our degree in our university. And most of the stories sort of are not very nice because, you know, some of us did it under the pressure of our parents. Some of us did it because our friends were doing it. Some of us did it because somebody told us you are going to make a lot of money. And, you know, all of us have those stories. And now that you are at the stage where you've graduated from university or you're in the corporate career thinking, I wish I had a guidance. You know, if I go back to when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, maybe I would have done things differently. And this is something that's been happening to our parents, that has happened to us. And I thought it is going to happen to my kids as well. And that is very unfair. Somebody has to do something about it. So we started MeraFuture.pk, and we make a very small contribution by doing the aptitude testing. So aptitude testing, basically, it's not a magic stick. It basically helps students understand themselves. What is their personality, what is their interest, what is their strong subject areas. Then it matches them to the fields which are available in Pakistan. It tells them they are more suitable, for example, for business administration as compared to engineering. So obviously we are not fortune predictors. We don't have a goblet, but what we do is we help them take an informed decision. This is all I want for young people, that, you know, when they are taking a decision, whether it is about their degree or it is about their career or it is about their job, there is some guidance available to them. So there is no guarantee that any decision is going to be 100% correct, but a decision that is taken with more information is likely to yield better results. So this is what we have been doing. We started in 2020, and we have since 13,000 students across Pakistan. And we are hoping the number would go into millions over the next 2 years. So the vision is to make it accessible and affordable to every kid across Pakistan, and eventually to expand as well. So in a nutshell, this is basically what we do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zunaira. I have a question here about neurodivergent children. So one of the issues with standardized testing is that it sort of places everybody into like a sort of rigid sort of standard metric that they have to sort of perform in, and then they're sort of like told, okay, based on your results in XYZ test, this is what you should be doing in your career. But how, did you have any room to accommodate neurodivergent children in this entire process?
So we have tried to make a little bit different from the other test. What most of the tests in the market would do is they would take into one dimension of a student, and they will suggest them degrees and careers accordingly. So for example, in a very very general example, if you're good at maths, you all know which degree you are going to choose, because that's what you will be told, that, you know, go and become an engineer. Because subject wise, this is where you're suitable. And, you know, if you're not good with sciences, then first of all, they label you as somebody who is dumb, who can't do well, who can't be successful. And then, you know, ask you to, you know, okay, you know, you can choose arts, or maybe you can do BBA. So, you know, that's how they are selecting based on whether you are good at one subject or not. And then there are other tests available which are completely dependent on the type of personality you have. So they will say that, you know, if you are drawing, you are sketching, sketching, then maybe art is a career that you should take. If you play games, you enjoy being in a closed room, you don't want to interact with people, then computer sciences is what you should take. So one thing is that we judge students on 3 different dimensions. So that's how we are a little bit different. And second thing, which is more important, is that what we have done with our AI model is we have sampled the people who are already successful in the field. So if somebody, for example, wants to, if somebody who's in computer sciences, they're doing very well, they are in the field, they're happy with their field, they're doing well. So they are the ones where our model is sampled at. So somebody, no matter how different they are, if when they give their test and their results go and match with those successful people, then that's what our test is going to recommend. So essentially, this is not really standardized testing, because the standardized testing will tell you that, if you have scored 99% in numerical reasoning, you should go and become an engineer. Our test won't do that. So I've had students who have scored very, very well in numerical reasoning, but they haven't been suggested engineering because their other dimensions and overall results went and they matched with, for example, natural sciences or business administration or accounting and finance. So that's how we are catering to it. Having said that, yes, all of us are very, very unique, and testing sometimes has this criticism that it is standardized and it tries to put everybody in the same box. And this is a fair sort of criticism. But at the same time, we don't have the best systems, but generally in the world, we go with the system that is the best available option. So right now, this is what we have, but hopefully in the future, every kid can be judged on their unique abilities and can be suggested careers accordingly. But till the time we get to that point, we have to rely on some of the tools which do put people in some boxes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zunaira. And just one more question before I move on to Mr. Khurram Elahi. How affordable are your tests for aptitude testing? How accessible are they to the general sort of population? Are they willing to pay for it, or are they hesitant? If you could just comment on that.
So when we started in 2020, I thought that I want this for everyone, and I don't want to go through schools. I don't want this to become an elite product, which is only available to a private school or a school which charges a certain amount. So first of all, it is online. So it is for everyone. They can go and they can take the test. We started at 1,000 rupees per student per test, but we had to increase the amount. I will blame it on the petrol, like everybody else. But in general, economy has been really tough. So it's now 2,000 rupees. I still think it is less than what you would go and spend at McDonald's, to be honest. I mean, it is about your career. I don't call it a fees. I call it a 2,000 rupees investment to take an informed decision. But we have had NGOs working with us, non-profits working with us, where we have charged 500 rupees, which is not even our cost. Just because it becomes accessible and affordable to them. So we've been to areas such as Kolu, we've been areas such as Chitral, Gilgit-Baltistan, Chakwal, so many places, and those students have had access to it. So maybe now you can call us a little bit expensive, but still I would think in terms of investment, it is not really a bad investment. Agar aap ek McDonald's ka burger chhod dein or aptitude testing kar lein, it would help you a lot more.
Oh, yes, for sure. I agree. Thank you so much, Dr. Zunaira. I really like the point that Neda Mulji brought up about having people to look up to and be motivated by. I know Mr. Khurram Elahi has been doing some work on this. Khurram bhai, if you could just comment on your work as a motivational speaker, what your experiences have been like interacting with the youth, what you feel are their salient concerns, their worries, anxieties, and so on, and how you have addressed those. Thank you.
Thank you, Abbas. सबसे पहले तो बहुत शुक्रिया कि आपने मुझे पैनल में शामिल रखा और आप मेरी माजरत कबूल करेंगे कि मैं कुछ प्रीएम्बल्स बांध लूं और फिर हम मौजू की तरफ आहिस्ता आहिस्ता रुजू कर लेंगे। सबसे पहली बात कि इल्म मुझे जो ज़ाती तौर पे लगता है बहुत ज़्यादा यूनान में इकट्ठा हो चुका था। मैं लोगों को बताता होता हूँ कि अगर आपने पैरामेनिडीज और डेमोक्राइटस की कोई पुरानी बहस सुनी हो तो आप शशदर रह जाएंगे कि तसव्वुर वक्त को इतना बखूबी यूनानियों ने समझा था। देयर वाज नो यूनिवर्सिटी, देयर वाज नो कॉलेज। वर्ड लीशियम भी बहुत बाद में तय हुआ था, मगर एक दिन सुकरात वहां जाकर बैठा और उसने बाआवाज बुलंद कहा, टुडे वी आर अबाउट टू डिस्कस नो स्मॉल मैटर। सारे लोग इकट्ठे हो गए एंड ही रिपीटेड, टुडे वी आर अबाउट टू डिस्कस नो स्मॉल मैटर बट हाउ वी शुड लिव। आज मैं जिंदा रहना सिखाऊंगा, ہماری نجی یونیورسٹی ہے, میرے دوست ڈاکٹر احمد فراز ایگری بھی کر سکتے ہیں, اس وقت سن رہے ہیں ہمیں, وہاں سیلف گرومنگ کا کورس پڑھایا جاتا ہے, اور میں اس کورس کے اتنے خلاف ہوں. جو آدمی 17-16 اساتذہ کو دیکھ کر یہ نہ طے کر پایا کہ پیرہن کیسی ہوگی, گفتار کیسی ہوگی, انکار کیسا ہوگا, جیسے ندا نے بہت اچھا کہا, غصہ کیسے کیا جاتا ہے, ناراضگی کیسے کی جاتی, تو یہ کیا ممکن ہے کہ وہ لوگ انسان ہونے کے لیے کوالیفائی کر رہے ہیں؟ And let me quote what a wonderful verse of Quran. Inna sharra dawab indallahi sumul bukmul lazina la yaqilun. وہ تمہیں لگتا ہوگا یہ لوگ ہیومنز ہیں, یہ چپاہے ہیں جو اس سے بھی بدتر. اب یہاں میں کچھ سویپ نہیں کر رہا, میں ڈیوائن سٹیٹمنٹ آپ کے سامنے رکھ رہا ہوں کہ وہ آدمی جو اپنی تشنگی اس بات پہ دور کر لے کہ میں ماسٹرز ان فزکس اور میری ماں کا نفسیاتی مسئلہ میرا ذاتی مسئلہ نہیں ہے, آپ اسے ہیومن بینگ کوالیفائی کروائیں گے؟ کیا ہم نے ڈسٹوپین لٹریچر میں بریو نیو ورلڈ سے لے کے فارنائٹ 451 میں جارج آرویل نے, یوگانی نے ہمیں بتایا نہیں تھا کہ ایسا عذاب تمہارے سروں پر لادا جائے گا؟ دوسری چیز جو اسٹوڈنٹس میں دیکھتا ہوں, اور جی عباس از مور لائک اے کامریڈ بردر, سو آئی ایم اسپیکنگ فرام ہارٹ. تو مجھے اتنی اچھی انگریزی شاید نہ آتی ہو, لیکن میں کوشش کروں گا کہ اپنی جو ذہن میں بات ہے وہ پہنچا سکوں. شیکسپیئر کے ناول سے بھی بڑی ٹریجڈی آپ نے اور میں نے سہی ہے اس بات کو سن کر کہ تم عالم نہیں ہو جب تک فلاں فلاں چار دیواری میں بیٹھ کر فلاں آدمی سے پریزنٹیشنز نما کورس نہ پڑھ لو. جان سٹورٹ ملز کو جا کے پڑھیے جناب والا, جیمز مل نے کہا میری کائنات ہے, میں اس کو ان لوگوں کے آگے پھینک دوں جو خود ابھی 10ویں فیل ہے, یا وہ اساتذہ کیونکہ نوکری نہیں مل رہی تو میں کہ یار تھوڑی دیر اسکول پڑھا لے, یہ گھر چلتا رہے گا. یہ معلمی ہے جو آپ پروفٹس کے ساتھ شیئر کرتے ہیں. تو جب وہ ول ہی نہیں ہے ٹیچر میں, رسول نے کیوں نہیں کہا تھا کہ بچے کو چیز نہیں کھا, لوگ کہتے ہیں اس لیے انہوں نے اس دن خود کھائی تھی. نہیں, اس دن بات دل میں نہ اترتی, بات کا کیا تھا, کر دیتا, میں 1000 برائیاں کرتا ہوں اپنے بیٹے کو نصیحتیں کرتا ہوں نہ کروں. مگر وہ جو ٹیچر ہوڈ تھا, وہ جو ایک سوکریٹیز پن تھا ایک ہیومن بینگز کے اندر کہ بھائی یہ فریڈرک نیٹشے کے فالوورز ہیں, یہ مارکس کے فالوورز ہیں. آج فالوورز ہی نہیں ہیں, 13-14 علوم پڑھیں, وہ بھی سر سلائیڈ بتا دیں, سر چیپٹر بتا دیں. And do you think any way they contribute to knowledge? وہ تو یہ بات جانتے بھی نہیں علم کیا ہوتا ہے. دوسری بات, یونیورسٹی ورڈ ڈیریویٹو ہے یونیورس کا, ایک ایسا مقام جہاں بیٹھ کر میں کائنات پر رائے دینی سیکھتا ہوں, جہاں ہم کلی طور پر بیٹھ کر یہ طے کرتے ہیں کہ ستارہ کیا ہے, پھول کیا ہے, مینجمنٹ کیا ہے. اور ہاں اسپیشلائزیشن ایک ہی ہوتی ہے, مگر یہ بات میں سب کو کہتا ہوں یونیورسٹی سے یا لم سے یا کامسیٹ سے باہر آ کے یونیورس آپ کو آپ کی اسپیشلائزیشن سے, میں نے اپنی ٹیڈ ٹاک میں ایک ہی بات کی, یونیورس gives a damn میری اسپیشلائزیشن کیا ہے. اور میں عموماً یہ بات کہتا ہوتا ہوں عباس کہ ہم -300 سال کے سفر پہ کھڑے ہیں. میں غالب کی طرح پھول نہیں دیکھ سک رہا, میں میر کی طرح غم نہیں سہ سک رہا, میں ہنری ڈیوڈ تھوراؤ کی طرح کوالیفائی نہیں کر رہا کہ اگر میری معاش اچھی نہیں ہو, اس کے پاس کون سی معاشی جاب تھی, اس نے امرسن کو کہا یار زمین تو میں نے گھر ڈالنا, وارڈن لکھ دی ادھر بیٹھ کے, آج پورا انوائرمنٹلسٹ اس کو پڑھ کے فیض حاصل کر رہے ہیں. تو یہ تو عجیب سی بات ہے. جیسے ڈاکٹر درے نے آپ کا جو کام تھا وہ کتنا امپورٹنٹ ہے کہ بچوں کو نوکری نہیں مل رہی. یار نوکری نہ ملے وہ تو پڑھن تو کیوں رک گئے ہیں, why you're unproductive even you're unemployed, یہ کب طے کیا آپ نے؟ نوکری تو بڑوں بڑوں کو نہیں. علامہ اقبال کی کیا نوکری تھی بتائیں مجھے, یا مجھے بتائیں کہ سب چھوڑے, بتائیں آئنسٹائن ڈاکٹر تھا یا نہیں, کبھی کہے ڈاکٹر آئنسٹائن. ادھر ہم نے اتنے القابات, خرم الہی فلانے اسپیکر تو ایمرائٹس آنے والے ہیں, تو بولتے ہیں تو آپ کو احساس ہوتا ہے کہ یہ تو بولنا نہ سیکھ پائے. تو آئنسٹائن کا لفظ بول کر میں ایسے بتا دیتا ہوں کہ یہ عالم العالم ہے, اس کے گھر جا کر پتا چلے گا علم کیا ہے. اور آخری بات جو ہمارے ایگزیکٹ ٹائٹل کے اوپر ہے, پھر ہم باقی لوگوں کو میری پہ ہم سوال و جواب کریں گے, مینٹورشپ. علامہ محمد اقبال کہتے ہیں میں ملحد ہوتا اگر نوجوانی میں ورڈزورتھ کو اپنا استاد نہ قرار دیتا, اور میں اس سے نیچر نہ پڑھتا. اسٹرے ریفلیکشن کی لائن ہے. کانٹ مارکس جو کہ موسوی اور مجھے بہت عباس کو مجھے بہت پسند ہے, وہ کائنات دیکھنے سے مارکس ہوتا ہی نہ اگر ہیگل جنم نہ لیتا. وہ کہاں ہیں بڑے لوگ؟ میں بھی ابھی ویبینار آنے سے پہلے اپنی والدہ سے پوچھوں 30 دفعہ میں روزانہ دعا کرتا ہوں صراط الذین انعمت علیہم، جو ہماری آج کی ٹاک کا ٹائٹل ہے. یا اللہ وہ لوگ دکھا جن پہ تیرے کرم ہے. 30 times I pray to God, show me a mentor. اور وہ اس مووی میں اس نے کہا ہے ڈیڈ پوئٹ سوسائٹی میں, all these sciences are very good but this is not what I live for. اور میں تو وہاں جب مجھے برطانیہ میں ایک تقریر کا موقع ملا, میں نے تو بیدل کا ایک ہی شعر پڑھا تھا, وہ بھی میری بہن مریم ہے پائڈ میں, وہ مجھے فارسی جب پھنستا ہوں بتا دیتے ہیں کہ سائنس کین کیچ دا فش بٹ اٹ مسز دا واٹر. ہمارے طالب علم کے پاس بہت علم ہے اور کوئی ایکسپیرینس نہیں ہے, اور علم جاننے کو کبھی بھی نہیں کہتے تھے ہسٹوریکلی. حافظہ علم کی بدترین فارم ہوتا ہے. حافظہ ذہن کا وہ ہے جہاں ذہن مڑ کر دیکھتے ہو شرمندہ ہوتا ہے, کیا یار I just forgot, شرمندگی ہوتی ہے. علم لیونگ ایکسپیرینس تھا, اور ہمارے کسی اسٹوڈنٹ میں وہ لیونگ ایکسپیرینس کے طور پر علم نہیں ہے. اس کو درجنوں دلائل ندا کو دینے پڑتے ہوں گے کہ میں میڈم نہیں, میں نے ماسٹرز کیا ہوا ہے, تو اللہ دی قسم سی وی پہ جائیں گا, پھر وہ 8 کاغذ اور بھیجتا ہے, لیکن ان کی تسلی نہیں ہوتی. کہتے بیٹا you're not carrying what you are. تمہارا تبریز نہیں ہے, رومی تو بن گئے ہو, وہ تم نے ادھر تک تو سب علم پھنسایا ہوا ہے, but it is not transforming you completely that you can be the change agent. اور ہماری علمی صورتحال یہ ہے کہ اس وقت ہم گارنٹی نہیں کر سکتے کہ ہمارے طالب علم کی تنہائی کیسی ہے. 21ویں صدی, ہم گارنٹی نہیں کر سکتے کہ وہ سیولائزڈ ہے یا نہیں ہے. ہم گارنٹی نہیں کر, وہ خود کے لیے فائدہ مند نہیں, اپنی تنہائی میں وہ معاشرے کی تکمیل کرے گا. لاسٹ بات, اور پھر آئی ایم اینڈنگ مائی ورڈز. جناب والا پنجاب جتوں میں آیا, پنجاب میں ایک لفظ تھا مرشد, جیسے بی اے بابا کہنا سیکھا کسی سے 2 + 2 4 ہوتا ہے, ایسے ایک مرشد رکھا جاتا تھا جو بتاتا تھا ہاؤ ٹو لیو اینڈ ہاؤ ٹو کرائی. اور فارسی کے ایک شعر کے ساتھ میں پینل کی طرف واپس جاؤں گا کہ درد و چشم من نشین وہ جو میری دونوں آنکھوں میں سما گیا ہے, ماں کے ازمن من تری میرا وہ استاد جو مجھ سے زیادہ میں ہے. وہ جو میری منزل کی فکر مجھ سے زیادہ کرتا ہے وہ کھو گئے ہے ہی نہیں ہے, اور اس وجہ سے وہ بچہ کٹورا لے کے مجھ جیسے سپیکرز کے آگے ایسے ایسے پھر رہا ہے, بھیک مانگ رہا ہے فیس بک پہ, انسٹاگرام پر, مجھے بتاؤ میرا مانی کہاں ہے, مجھے اور ونسنٹ وین گو نے اپنی سیڈنس میں اس سے بڑا مانی نکال لیا, ان کو خوشی میں نہ ملا. اس کو مانی نہیں ہے, اس کو استاد ہی نہیں ہے کوئی. اس نے ایسا استاد تو مکینک کا بھی ہوتا ہے, اور خدا کی قسم اس کی زیادہ عزت کرتا ہے, وہ ماردہ بھی سہ لیندہ ہے. ایسا استاد تو چھلی والے کا بھی ہوتا ہے, جسے بتاتا ہے کتنی دباؤ گے تو پکی ہو جائے گی. شاید وہ استاد نہیں مل رہا جو ذہن کو وسعت دینا سکھائے اور ذہن کو اس بات پر رضامند کر لے کہ میں مرنے سے پہلے کائنات میں امپریشن چھوڑ کے جاؤں گا, ورنہ پتھر کا امپریشن ہے, یہ کیسے ہے کہ میرا امپریشن نہیں ہے. تو یہ میری طرف سے چھوٹی سی باتیں تھیں. جیسے شوا I can't spell her name right, ساڈے تے سادہ جے نہ ہوندے نے تھے, but she said very well کہ یونیورسٹیز ہیو فیلڈ. اور یہ آپ جو بڑے بڑے نام لیتے ہیں ان کو شامل رکھا کریں, وہ اور طرح فیل ہوئے ہیں, یہ اور طرح فیل ہوئے ہیں. فیلئر جہالت ہماری کامن ہے, کچھ امیر ہیں کچھ غریب ہے, لیکن جو جہالت کا ہمارا عنصر ہے, کم از کم میرا, اگر کسی کو برا وہ ہمارا کامن ہے. ہم نے عباس موسوی بھائی گوگل کو بے بس کر دیے کہ میں علم نہیں حاصل کروں گا. سکور کتنا ہوا, ویدر کیسا ہے, سیل کہاں لگی ہے, گوگل بے. میں آج کل ایک ایگزامپل دے رہا ہوں کہ جوسے ہوتے کا یہ گیسٹ از a Spanish philosopher, you know, I'm in love with nowadays, and there is no content on him on internet, but I found a lecture on a YouTube specifically on his philosophy of raison vital, and that gives you such a hope. آکسفورڈ میں داخلہ نہیں ہوا, مسئلہ ہی نہیں ہے یار, سارے لیکچرز پڑھے ہیں یوٹیوب پہ. تمہارا لمز میں نہیں ہوا, نو پرابلم, کورس آؤٹ لائن ڈاؤن لوڈ کرو, گوگل مارو, یوٹیوب پہ سیکھ لو. مگر وہ ہم بہت چالاک ہیں, تو ہم نے یہ چالاکی بخوب کھیلی ہے کہ میرا داخلہ نہیں ہوا, اس لیے اب میں علم کے راستوں پر نہیں چلوں گا. تو دعا کریں کہ وہ جو ہم دعا کرتے ہیں صراط الذین انعمت علیہم, یا وہ قبول ہو جائے یا دعا بدل جائے. شکریہ.
Thank you so much, Khurram Bhai. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak. I'm very much inspired. We need hundreds more of Khurram Elahis in Pakistan, I feel like. I think even this is what you've said is even more true in the age of technology. Our approach to education still seems to be stuck in those old ways. Catch up periodic table के elements सिखा दो बच्चों को, algebra के formulas सिखा दो, or मतलब like just like memorize them, reproduce them in the exam, and that's pretty much it. Get the grade and move on. We need to like rethink our entire approach to education. I feel like incorporating elements of creativity and innovation, philosophy, and so on. In the age of the internet, the goal is not to teach students what to think, but how to, right? It's about sparking that element of curiosity in them, and then just getting out of their way and allowing them to explore what they're truly interested in. I want to bring back Neda into the conversation here. Neda, how do you think we can foster a culture where we have people to look up to, especially with regards to the youth, where they can derive a sense of inspiration from individuals? Thanks.
So Abbas, you mentioned skills, and you mentioned what students need in terms of exploring their thinking. What we do at Oxford University Press is publish books that aim to address the gap between content and skills. So we bring global skills into every subject through these books. And global skills is an extended version of what we used to call 21st century skills in terms of communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking. What I find is that these books go into the hands of teachers, as Khurram said, who might be driven, but might not be able to unravel the content and help spark that intrinsic motivation that we're looking for in students. Once students get the drive to explore on their own, they can take ownership of their learning. Or फिर जैसे खुरम ने कहा, even if they're not earning, they don't have a job, or they have difficulty in this subject or that subject, if they have the drive within them, they will find a way. Now that kind of intrinsic motivation is very difficult to spark, but once the spark goes off, it's very difficult to push it down or to make it die out again. It stays for life. Where are we not getting that right? To me, it seems like this country needs much more in terms of much more investment in teacher training. So we do that. I work as senior manager of professional development at Oxford University Press. And we conduct teacher training all over, almost in all parts of Pakistan. However, I find that the teachers learn particular content and then take it to the students, deliver it. As Khurram gave the example of the Challi Wala, who's also an Ustad because he's teaching particular mechanical steps to follow. But teaching is not about mechanical steps. Teaching is about unraveling thinking, which includes coaching, it includes counseling, and it includes mentorship. It's about a personal drive. वो हम किस तरह से unlock करते हैं बच्चों के अंदर, थोड़ी उस पे हमें conversations इस country में करने की ज़रूरत है. Why? Because teachers first need to understand what they will need to learn to be able to unlock that thinking in their students. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि teachers जाके content deliver करें या knowledge transfer करें. ये जो knowledge transfer करने वाली बात है ना, this is very archaic now. This is obsolete. ये apply नहीं करती in this day and age इस दुनिया में. Because जो knowledge आपके पास है, उससे कई ज़्यादा बच्चे सीख लेंगे Google से, internet से, and their other exposure and their influences. Travel is also much more affordable now for a lot of people who couldn't afford travel perhaps 3 decades ago. It's more accessible. दुनिया छोटी हो गई है. So the teacher is not the only source of knowledge. However, the teacher can unlock the drive, potential, and motivation. And for that, there is a holistic kind of experience that the child must get. It's not only about content. It is about skills, but not only about content and skills. It's also about a personal relationship. It's about experience. It's about understanding life, understanding human beings. It's about having conversations in class about the universe, as Khurram said. So the role of the teacher, I think, is paramount in where our kids go and how they learn to think and how they make decisions for themselves.
Wonderful. We have a question from the floor from Mansoor Malik. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for giving the floor. I'm Engineer Mansoor Malik, Founding Director General of the NUST New Campus in Islamabad. I've been working with the youth for the last 20 years. First 8 years when I was setting up this new campus in Islamabad, and last 12 years as a volunteer. So I've got more than 20 years in 7 big cities and rural areas of Pakistan, mentoring and helping people launch off their startup companies. So my two comments are, number one, we set up the first, by the way, if you look at the NUST emblem, it covers up what we are discussing today in terms of totally changing the optics of NUST campus in Islamabad. We designed a new emblem and captured the spirit of defining futures. And that's all what we are doing right now in this seminar. How do we look at the youth? We've read and heard Khurram treatise on the Greco-Roman philosophers and the German philosophers and the Punjabi, Sufis. Fine, that's there to help us motivate, but we require 21st century skills. So we did two things. One, we set up the country's first technology incubation center, where we've helped mentor more than 5,000 startup companies during the last 20 years. That's one aspect. Second, in 2005, we set up the country's first professional development center. Now it's more than 17 years, where we define and we keep on every year review how do we improve the teacher's skills, how do we improve the professional skills. So universities would be better off if they look at this first model, PDC I call it, Professional Development Center, and emulate it. We are here to solve problems. We can go on describing the problems, but I've had a lot of good experiences working with youth the last 20 years. And I always would like to end my, comment on a positive note. Our future is bright. Our youth, both the rural and urban areas. I looked after the outreach program from NUST. LUMS and NUST was given this outreach program to help youth, come over to the universities, prepare them to sit in the entrance exam. So I have a lot of faith. All we require is that one of the speakers said, the structural response. The structural response is on two aspects. One, there are more than now 45 incubation centers in universities where we can help youth launch their own companies. I've been doing it voluntarily in some of the universities, but perhaps we require more capacity in terms of mentorship. And second aspect is, organization like Professional Development Center, where you bring in the teachers to, upgrade their skills, and also the working professionals to come back and upgrade their skills. This feedback from the industry, upscaling, sending them back, that's what we require. We can keep on going on and on with the Socrates and, with whatever we have. I've read all of them in my youth, when I was, before doing my engineering and even after doing my engineering. But we need solutions based on 21st century. Thank you.
Abbas, I would like to respond. मसला सिर्फ ये है कि जिस चीज को हम स्किल्स कह रहे हैं ना, वो जहन आदतन सीख लेते हैं अगर उसको बड़ा जज्बा बचपन में दे दिया जाए. हम ऐसे डॉक्टर या इंजीनियर बनाने की बात करें जो कभी कभी मुफ्त इलाज भी कर दिया करें, वो जिसके क्लिनिक के बाहर गरीब खड़ा होते. हम उस ह्यूमैनिटी को प्रिजर्व करने की बात करें, स्किल्स देने की बात. हम वो एलन मस्क नहीं पैदा करना चाह रहे जो थ्रेट करता है कि मैं ट्वीट करूंगा तो मैं शेयर्स गिरा दूंगा, या जो कहे कि चांद पर चलते हैं ये दुनिया में एक पार्क में चेंज कर दूंगा. तो हम उन लोगों को बड़ा बनाना चाह रहे हैं जो बड़े बनकर वो कोई फॉस्ट ना बन जाएं, जो अपनी रूह डेविल को बेच चुके हो. हम वो बच्चों की इस वक्त बात करना चाह रहे हैं जो स्किल्ड बेशक हो मगर ह्यूमन होना क्वालिफाई करें. वरना ये ना हो कि 21वीं सदी में हम अपने बच्चों को या कहा करें कि देखो तुम नाकिस रोबोट और वो देखो रोबोट वो जो मुकम्मल आदमी है. तो हम इस रोबोट से ज्यादा तो कोई स्किल्ड और एफिशिएंट और प्रोडक्टिव नहीं होता. और वो जो यूनानियों की बात की, आज उन्हीं के कंधों पे खड़े होकर हमने तहजीब को जन्म दिया है. वरना ये जो तहजीब है हमारे पास दिखाने को है क्या? 300 साल से तो एक लिटरेरी पीस नहीं हम पैदा कर सके जिसकी वजह से तहजीब पैदा होती है. जो मूसवी ने यहाँ फरमाया वो ये मैं अभी लाइन खोल के रख रहा था, एमिली डोरकम ने मरने से पहले कहा था कि याद रखिएगा कि पीरियोडिक टेबल से आप एलिमेंट्स तो प्लेस कर लेंगे, सोसाइटी इकट्ठी नहीं कर पाएंगे, इंसान अलग-अलग फिर रहे होंगे। तो यहाँ हम उन ह्यूमंस को पैदा करने की बात कर रहे हैं जिनके पास बेसिक स्किल हो या एडवांस स्किल हो, वो कम से कम ह्यूमन होते हुए उस स्किल को एक्सरसाइज कर रहे हो। ये ना हो कि वो जो गार्डियन में आर्टिकल छपा है कि they want the metaverse and going to the Mars because they don't want you to see what they have done to the universe, ताकि वो जो बर्निंग यूनिवर्स है जिसमें मार्च में सांस ना लिया जा रहा वो क्वालिफाई ना कर रहे हो, जहाँ पे CSR बस ऐसी 2% हो, कभी कभी कर लिया और कभी कभी इश्तिहारों में लगा दिया, जो नियतन बेहतर ह्यूमन होने के लिए क्वालिफाई कर रहे हो। तो यहाँ पे वी वर नॉट एडवर्टाइजिंग दोज पीपल। मेरे ख्याल से अगर आप आज के किसी भी बड़े स्कॉलर को पढ़ेंगे, उसने 5 ऑथर्स लिखे हों कि बड़ा जहन कैसे तरतीब दिया जाता है, तो यूनान के 3 नाम उसमें शामिल होंगे। तो हम यहाँ पे प्रिजर्विंग द बीइंग्स की बात कर रहे हैं, वो बीइंग जो ना भी स्किल्ड हो। अल्लाह माफ करे, वो अलामा का शेर याद आ रहा है, दियारे मगरिब के रहने वालों, खुदा की बस्ती दुकान नहीं है। बस दुकान में स्किल ठीक हो गया, कर रहे हैं, करेंगे बच्चे और कर रहे हैं। आप देखें कल जो अवार्ड्स मिले उनमें 3 अवार्ड्स हिशाम सरवर, नंदला और जो राफे को मिला है, वो दे आर डूइंग वंडरफुल वर्क। मगर अब आप हिशाम से पूछिए, वी आई ऑलवेज शेयर स्टेज विद हिम, इज इक्वली कंसर्न्ड कि यार पैसा तो अब ये कमा रहा है, पता नहीं पैसा लगाएगा कहाँ। तो हम वो वाली बात कर रहे हैं कि ही इज अर्निंग एंड इज अर्निंग गुड, मगर ये लगाएगा कहाँ। मतलब कि ये ना हो कि ये गूगल पर बैठ के गूगल के ऊपर वही करे जो हमारे बैंक से कभी गलत ट्रांजैक्शन निकल जाती हैं, कभी कोई डार्क एरियाज पे काम ना कर रहा हो। तो उसके ऊपर तो किसी को दो राय नहीं। वो आज का मौजू मेंटरशिप है, जहनों के ऊपर ऐसी छतरी कायम करना जो उनको बेहतर इंसान बनाने के लिए क्वालिफाई करती है।
Thank you, Khurram. I want to bring in Dr. Nadeem Haque if he's still with us. He had his hand up for a bit. I'm not sure if he is.
Dr. Nadeem is disconnected at the moment.
Acha, okay. Mansoor Saab has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, Khurram is right, absolutely, because I've read the Sufi saints also, Allama Iqbal, Rumi, they're all very important in building up. What I was trying to say is that last 13 years, I've had youth working with me on voluntary basis. They're still, Pakistan is still producing so motivated youth who are ready to give their time and energy in mentoring other youth. So I think let's look at what happened in outreach program. Why don't you take up case studies, both the lumps, graduates who won the outreach program scholarships and the NUST outreach program. We brought youth from villages who could not speak English, who had less mathematics. We tried to give them 3 months, 4 months, preparation for sitting in the entrance exam, and now where they are today, they've come back. Most of them have come back with top PhDs from top universities. Perhaps, as a corollary to this, webinar today, we may like to look at the lumps and the NUST experience of those youths who were, living in villages. They didn't have even slippers on. They were staying in mud. They have less, good teachers. And yet, when the opportunity came, both lumps and NUST gave them. Where are they today? So, what I'm trying to say is, fine, all these, are philosophers and are very important, but we need to look at our own positivity within our youth and what they've done so far last 10, 20, 30 years. And especially, I would love to have more data, more analysis on the European Union's outreach program, where they built up scholarships both for deserving students at lumps and NUST. And that's my last comment. And thank you very much for having me on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansoor Saab. Dr. Nadeem, go ahead.
Thanks. Delightful seminar. Good stuff going on. I take Mansoor Saab's point, and let's arrange a webinar for looking at the LUMS and NUST experience as well. We should be ready to learn from wherever we can. I think that's a central point that we should think about. I think the problem in Pakistan is that we have become very, very mercantilist in nature. Now, what is mercantilism? Mercantilism is this greed, this hunger to somehow try and extract resources and hoard them. Basically, object is on trying to make money and hoard it somehow, without actually trying to achieve human excellence. And I think that's where we fail. We tried to do that with exports, we tried to do that with import substitution, and we failed because our objective is still crass, filthy lucre, no matter how you accumulate it, or getting gold and accumulating gold, and no matter how we accumulate it. But the broader vision that the West has gone for, and that the Americans have gone for, and the Chinese are now trying to attain, is that it's human excellence that eventually pays off. And that what ultimately brings about a joyful and a good society is by giving rein to achievement of human excellence. So what I'd like to talk about, what we did conference in Bishop was opportunities to excel. And I think rather than focusing on one little technology input here or there, I remember when I was young, we used to have PIDC, and we thought PIDC was creating a new Pakistan where industry could happen, and everybody was sitting on a textile mill. But what happened? We got nowhere. There's other measures of society that we should look at. For example, what I keep talking about is, why don't we win Olympics? Why don't we win any medals? We play golf. We are a golf playing society. Why? Because we build more golf courses than anybody else. We're building about 20 golf courses a year now. But we have no international golf player. We have no playgrounds for students. So we have less than holistic development. When we talk about LUMs or whatever, they're trying to produce these people. Babar Ali started off by making business graduates. It was much later that he learned that business graduates alone won't do. And therefore he started, there was a fight between him and Javed Ahmed where he left, because Babar Ali wanted a strictly business school. Even today, and it took a 30-year struggle for LUMs to move from a business school to something more. We have a very business-oriented variety. I would like to see kids with a very vast opportunity to do whatever they like, from climbing mountains to swimming the seas to charting out the universe, whatever they like, to making great art. It is that kind of a Renaissance individual that we should be striving for. When we talk about the youth, we have to make Renaissance individuals. We have to make curious individuals. We have to stop thinking of youth as an item that has to be trained. I oppose education because I think we are treating youth as some kids, some raw material that has to be somehow sculpted out. I don't look at youth that way. That's why I fight with them all the time. That's why I argue with them all the time, because to me, they're equals, and I'm willing to argue and fight with them on an equal plane. I do not need to patronize them into making them into something. I'm no mentor. I'm no great person. I need to treat them as somebody who can be argued with, and for them to come back and talk to me, and for them to argue back so that they can become Renaissance individuals. So my last thought to you is, let's think Renaissance. We have never had a Renaissance. We remain very mercantilist in thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadeem. Just adding to that, I would also want to say that we don't seem to have this openness towards unconventional industries either. Just a few months ago, we held a nationwide competition on esports. I'm not sure how many people are aware of that, but the top team in that competition, I believe they won a total of about 75 lakhs rupees. Which is quite extraordinary. And I don't think we are paying any attention to these kinds of industries. We're not making any efforts to incubate them whatsoever. Dr. Zunaira, I want to bring you in here. Does MeraFuture talk about these kinds of industries and facilitate children in that direction? Please go ahead.
जी बिल्कुल MeraFuture tries to do that, but before that I'd like to make a point about universities, because I was associated for NUST with NUST for 12 years. It's very easy to play a blame game and also have a defensive approach when somebody points finger at you that universities are a failure, universities are not giving a skill, and universities stand up and say, we are making so much difference. I don't think this blame games helps anyone. Universities are really struggling right now to give a skill, that is true. But at the same time, I think we really need to understand that why universities are built like that. And every institution in Pakistan stems from the culture that we have. For me, it is very easy to stand up and say that the school is bad or the university is bad, but the problem is in the overall culture. we are snubbing the kids at home. We are snubbing the kids at very early age. I mean, Neda said that they are publishing books which are nice books and, you know, which are sort of trying to help the environment or the gap that exists. But the problem is there is no book reading habit in Pakistan because parents are so focused on making sure that their kids are buried in the coursework and homeworks and tuitions that they have no time for sports or esports or any activities which promote their critical thinking. So unfortunately, despite having many students enrolled into private institutions, whether they are schools or universities, we are not producing any Einsteins. And that is a very unfortunate state of affairs right now that, yes, outreach program is fantastic. I've been actually part of outreach program long time ago. But the question is that, yes, we are giving a better future. But if you overall look at the picture, because as I said, I've been associated with the university, what happens to these kids in the long run? What happens to kids who take positions? What happens to kids who take 22 A's in A-level and O-level? And eventually, if you look at them, everybody averages out. So if everybody is averaging out, then there is something seriously wrong with our education system. There is something seriously wrong with our culture. And this is a very vicious cycle, and nobody is going to benefit from blaming the other people. I do not appreciate the behavior and attitude where universities are blamed for everything. I do not appreciate when schools are blamed for everything. I mean, for God's sake, private schools are there because government public schools are bad. They're really bad. So I am not going to send my kid to a public school. If I can afford to, I will send them to a private school. So a private school has to pay for electricity. They have to pay for their own security. They have to pay for the premises. Of course, they're going to charge your kid. What do you expect when you send a kid to a private school? And since they are sending it to private school, the parents are forcing them that we don't see our kids studying, so why aren't you giving enough homework? So at the end, the victim is the kid. And nobody is actually talking about a long-term solution, which is very difficult, which is that everybody and every institution in this place needs to be fixed. It is easy for me to blame a school. It is easy for me to blame my university. It is easy for me to take a credit as a single person, as an individual, or as an institution, but we really, really need to work together. And right now it is not happening. So I taught at a university, and it was easy for me to blame the schools because when the kids come to the university, they're really ruined, if I may use that word, because they are privileged. They think they don't need to study. They think, you know, they own the university or teachers and they can direct them as the way they want. So it's easy for me to do that. But the question is, why are kids like that? What is the problem? Where is the grassroots level issue? Schools are paying 30,000, 40,000 rupees to teachers, and you are expecting them to produce Einsteins. I don't think that is going to work like that. As far as PhDs are concerned, I'm a PhD myself, but I tell you that PhD right now has become such a rotten degree. China is giving 500 scholarships every year to Pakistanis who are going to Chinese university and coming back, and they don't have jobs. So I am also not of the opinion that giving more education makes a difference. I think the problem lies somewhere else, and all of us as individuals and institutions have to make a difference. I had to say that because I've been associated on the both ends. As a parent, I see my kids struggling at school because I try to promote a different culture at home. Schools are trying to promote a completely different culture despite the fact they study in a private school. I've been at universities who are taking pride, who have superiority complexes that, you know, we have 1 lakh students giving the test and only 2.5% are getting in. Then if that 2.5% is not happy with what they are doing, then what is wrong with universities? And yes, you are getting kids from the rural areas and they are, doing well and they're doing better for universities, but for their home and, their families. But at the age of 40, if they're utterly unhappy with what they are doing, nobody's talking about that. So I think बहुत short-term goals every institution has set up. They have decided that this is our goal and we are going to achieve that. Whether that makes a difference in the long term or not, we don't really care. So I think this blame game should stop. Everyone needs to work together. Institutions needs to work together, and we as individuals need to make a difference at our homes. And that start by giving your kids freedom to question, by giving your kids a chance to become critical thinkers. When we produce kids who are critical thinkers, things will change because these kids are going to grow up and become teachers. They're going to become good teachers. They're going to become good entrepreneurs, they're going to become good job seekers, job creators. तो ये बहुत एक छोटी सी चेंज है, वो हमारे घरों से शुरू हो सकती है, उसमें कोई इतनी बड़ी साइंस नहीं है कि हम लोगों को और इंस्टीट्यूट को ब्लेम करें कि उसकी वजह से हमारी इकोनॉमी और हमारा मुल्क जो खराब है. So that had to be said. Secondly, as far as MeraFuture is concerned, MeraFuture has its own limitations, but what we are trying to do right now is, I do agree with some of the things that Khurram said, that skill is very important, but at the same time, of course, this is something that will take a long time to happen. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to put the students in the degrees that will actually match with their aptitude. Because if I know so many engineers who have been forced into engineering and they do the bachelor because their parents want them to tell about the families to know that our kid is an engineer, and then they come and do the MBA because that's what they really like. And I've seen so many BBAs, they're doing BBA because they didn't get admission in a medical college, and they were trying to get into a medical college because again, their parents wanted them to more. This is the only dream that they had when they were growing up. So MeraFuture is trying to make a very small difference at a very small level. We understand students go to universities and students choose degrees, and they stay with them for most of their lives because of course we are a poor country, we don't have a lot of privilege to take risks and everything. So we are trying to put students in degrees where their aptitude matches. And if we can make that small difference, if we can put 10 students in the degrees where they genuinely thrive, they actually like it, I think eventually it is going to make a huge, huge difference. So that's what MeraFuture is trying to do. We definitely need to improve and do more at a school level as well, which we are not right now. But the vision is there, and hopefully things are going to get better. But I will just conclude it by saying that all of us, we really, really need to make a difference at our level and not blame other institutions, other individuals, but work together, because I don't see any other way that this country is going to improve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zunaira. I completely agree. I really like the point about starting at home. I feel like in Pakistan, like you said, we don't have a culture of reading at all, which is why I really appreciated Atomcamp's initiative of like the book club that they hold every week on Sundays. I think that's a great initiative, and it's gonna create ripples, I believe. At a more broader sort of level, I feel like we have this sort of pathological culture in Pakistan where even parents and the sort of like guidance they offer to their kids is completely misguided. And not to sort of bring too much gender politics into this, but so especially with males, young males are taught from a young age to be aggressive, to be dominating, to bully other people, and they're presented this sort of myopic kind of view, and they're told that this is what it means to be successful. And just as one example, I mean, there's so many with like even with like hyper conservative kind of upbringings and so on. We sort of restrict the possibilities that are open to children from a very young age. So I want to ask Neda about this. Neda, how do you think we can sort of address this sort of restrictive culture? How do you think we can change this? And I also want Khurram to comment on this a little bit after Neda. Please go ahead.
It's a very tricky one because yes, it does go back to what we're reading. What are the children reading? Where are their influences and the experiences coming from? Because when we read, we sort of get transported into a completely different world. What worlds are these children getting transported into is my first question. Now, the thing is, I think 2 generations ago, we were still reading just fine. We had a culture of reading. It's kind of fading out, not only because of the digital transformation, but it's also because we denounce the English language a bit too much now. So the idea is there's this mohim against Angrezi and going back to regional languages and Madri Zaban ke upar zyada zor diya jata hai. And I am not against that. But I do feel if our education is going to be, our boards are going to have students take exams in English for every subject other than Urdu, then the children need some competence in the English language. And those competence levels are so low that when they try to read books in English, they can't manage. It's difficult for them. And so the reading habit, that's one reason for which the reading habit starts to die out. There's much research that children, I think, need to be exposed to. That's in English, that's available in English. And the use of technology is also something that's tied to the use of the English language. Access to technology, access to research, access to skills, access to just basic information comes through that language. So that language does carry with it a lot of mobilization power, social power. So that's one reason I think the reading habit is dying out. In terms of what we teach children about the roles and responsibilities of boys versus the roles and responsibilities of girls, I think we have a lot to learn in terms of what is being talked about in the classrooms. You see, if we can have a non-judgmental classroom where it is not the business of the teacher to impart religious education or mold the character of the students or impose his or her values on the students, तो फिर education बहुत फर्क होगा, because वो emotionally distant और non-judgmental अगर हमारे teachers रह सके और content और skills पे emphasis हो, बच्चे की खुद की personality और बच्चे की खुद की development और potential पे emphasis हो, तो बहुत कुछ change हो सकता है, but we don't do that. So the idea of mentorship, going back to the original topic, is not that the mentee should become like the mentor. The idea is not to create clones of ourselves or replicas of ourselves. The idea is to help unleash potential in our mentees or in our students if we're in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Neda. Khurram bhai, do you want to comment on that? Go ahead, please.
मेरे ख्याल से जैसे निदा ने कहा कि किताबें हम कहते होते हैं this is the last form of magic which is left with the mankind, और जुबान के हवाले से जो उन्होंने कहा उस पर मैं ये मतलब कि ऐड जरूर करना चाहूँगा कि कहते हैं कि मगरिब में अफसाने लिखे गए और शायरी मशरिक में हुई। तो एक बच्चा अगर अंग्रेजी नहीं सीखता तो मेरे लिए वो पेपर से ज़्यादा जॉर्ज ऑरवेल को ना पढ़ने के काबिल रहने से ज़्यादा बड़ा नुकसान अपना करेगा। या अगर वो अंग्रेजी नहीं पढ़ता तो वो रे ब्रैडबरी का अब मुखातिब नहीं बन सकता। ये ज़्यादा नुकसानदेह बात है। ये वो बुनियादी तब्दीलियां हैं जो हमें मुआशरे में लानी है कि मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ भाई जो नहीं पढ़ता और जो नहीं पढ़ना जानता उन दोनों में क्या फ़र्क है? उन दोनों में किसी किस्म का कोई फ़र्क होना भी नहीं चाहिए। और ऐसे ही जो उर्दू जानता है और वो गालिब को नहीं पढ़ता तो वो अपने ऊपर एक बहुत बड़ा जुल्म कर रहा है कि वो अपने अंदर एक स्टैटिकल ह्यूमन बीइंग को पैदा करने से रोक रहा है। दूसरी बात जो हुई वो ये थी कि स्कूल की, मैं भी कैलकुलेशंस कर रहा था कि 6 घंटे मैक्सिमम एक यूनिवर्सिटी स्टूडेंट पढ़ता है। हमारे आज के वेबिनार जो आपने भी बैनर भेजा, जो आपने प्रीएम्बल भी बांधा, प्रीमाइज सेट की, वो 18 घंटे वाले इंसान की बात हो रही थी कि वो बाकी के 18 घंटों में क्या करेगा। क्या वो ये अज्यूम कर लेगा कि अब इल्म हासिल करना मुअत्तल हो चुका है क्योंकि मैं बाहर आ चुका हूँ और अब मैं बेरार हूँ इंसान हूँ। और आम स्कूल का बच्चा 5 घंटे स्कूल जाता है और 19 घंटे वो घर में होता है और 19 घंटे में घर वालों ने उसको हर तरह से फोन भी पकड़ाया हुआ है और ये भी किया हुआ है, वो भी किया हुआ है। और वो ये कहते नहीं जी सवेर नूं जांदा है स्कूल। ओ भाई स्कूल ने कोई जिम्मेदारी थोड़ी उठा ली है। बच्चा वो आपका है, पैरों में जन्नत आपने ली है उसकी वजह से, स्कूल वालों ने थोड़ी ली है। आपने कैसे सस्पेंड कर दी अपनी ये सबसे बड़ी जिम्मेदारी कि मैंने इसको तालीम के सफर में जारी रखा। दूसरी बात कि हमारा कितना बड़ा बच्चों के स्कूल में, because I got 2 kids, they go to school and I worry about their bags. ज़हन फरागत में इल्म हासिल करता है। अगर आप पैराडाइम शिफ्ट्स ऑफ नॉलेज देखें, वो न्यूटन का हो, वो आइंस्टाइनियन हो, और अगर मैं पहले जाऊं पटोलमी और कोपर्निकस का देखो, तो वो फरागत के वक्त में सेब तो हजारों के, वैसे तो ये वाकया सच्चा ही नहीं है पहली बात, मगर अगर मान लीजिए अफसानी सतह पे हजारों आंखों के आगे सेब गिरे, इतना बुनियादी तस्वुर ऑफ ग्रेविटी नजर ना आया। क्यों? क्योंकि वी आर सो ऑक्युपाइड बाय आवर ओन सेल्व्स कि अब हमें गैर नजर ही नहीं आता, हमें चार नजर ही नहीं आता। और जैसे आपने आज के बैनर में भी लिखा हुआ और जो पहले निदा ने बात की, वी हेज टुडे टू सेटल। यूनिवर्सिटियां तो डॉक्टर नदीम कहते हैं 230 खुली हुई है, फॉरेन भी पढ़ रहे हैं, ऑनलाइन कोर्सरा पे भी पढ़ रहे हैं। वी टॉकिंग अबाउट कि तुम पढ़ तो रहे हो मगर तुम पढ़ते तो हो लेकिन आलिम नहीं दिखते। ये वो ग्रैंड ट्रेजेडी, और वो खुद भी बच्चा जानता है, वो खुद, बल्कि मैं खुद भी ये बात जानता हूँ कि मैंने अल्फाज भी सीख लिए, मैथ भी सीख लिया, मगर जैसे सारी यूनिवर्स एक हॉच पॉच ऑफ मैटर है और उसके आगे मैं एक मानूस सी बिल्ली बैठा हूँ and he has no idea where to go, और बस दिन पर दिन गुजरे जा रहे हैं। अब तो वहां पर ये बात बहुत जरूरी है कि हम अपने बच्चों में पढ़ाई आम करें। और मैं आपको बताता चलूं कि रियासत ने हर तरह के लिए, हम नहीं पढ़ना चाहते, नेशनल बुक फाउंडेशन 50% देता है, लाइक मोस्ट ऑफ द बुक्स ऑन माय बैक व्हेन आई वाज नॉट अर्निंग दैट वेल, 50% कीमत देती है, 50% हुकूमत देती है, बशर्ते के कोर्स की बुक ना हो, जाओ खरीदो, आधे पैसे हुकूमत देती है। इसके अलावा अल्लामा मोहम्मद इकबाल का, मुझे उनसे थोड़ी मोहब्बत है या समझ लें तो, 210 रुपए का सारा काम मिल जाता है। ये सारा मुरत्तब इकबाल उस जमाने में नहीं था, जिस जमाने में हम कहते हैं मुसलमान बड़े जवाल पजीर थे, उस जमाने में नहीं था, लेकिन आज है। गालिब उस जमाने में इतना मुरत्तब नहीं था जितना आज है, मगर हम पढ़ते ही नहीं। आप देखिए कि अभी 2D ऑब्जेक्ट मिला है, एनियन, जिसका नाम रखा गया है क्वांटम फिजिक्स में। फ्लैटलैंड, ये एक किताब है, एक नॉवल है, एक मैथमेटिशियन ने लिखी थी, वो उसमें पहले प्रेडिक्ट कर चुका था, और ये एक अफसाना है। तो जब हम अपने बच्चों के आगे कोई ऐसे कोर्सेज, कोर्सेज तो नहीं, सर्कल्स रखें, ऐसे इजमा रखें, ऐसे क्लोज सर्कल्स रखें जहां पर हम उनके सामने ये लुक्रेटिव गुफ्तगू रखें कि जनाबे वाला ये देखो कि ये अफसाने से उसने ये सीखा, या साइंस से उसने वो बात की। जैसे मैक्सवेल के बारे में कहा जाता है कि वो इक्वेशंस पोएम्स की सूरत में लिखता था, और कन्वर्जेंस में पीटर वाटसन ने वो कोट करके भी नज़में दिखाई हैं जहां उसने वो देखा। So that brings such a charm in a student to be like them. And lastly, we're missing one important work जो हम इस वक्त कोट नहीं कर रहे, और क्योंकि हम सब पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं और एक इल्मी सतह पे देख रहे हैं कि मसला क्या है, वो थॉमस कार्लाइल की किताब हीरो एंड हीरो वर्शिप है। जब मुझे पहली दफा डॉक्टर नदीम हक से मेरी बिल्कुल पहली मुलाकात हुई, तो दैट वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट ये स्क्वाश एंड क्रिकेट। यार तुम किसको देखते हो? हम तो कारदार को देखते हो, हम तो जानशेर को देखते। दे हैड हीरोज टू लुक एट। उनके पास वो कदावर लोग थे जो उन्हें रोजाना ट्रांसेंड करने पे मजबूर करते थे। कुल्ला यौमिन हुआ फिशान, ऐसे इश्क में मुब्तला है कि आशिक बदली जा रहा है, मेरा बदलना जरूरी है। वो रोजाना बुलंद हो रहा है और मैंने बेहतर हो। और मैं लास्ट लाइन ये बोलना चाहूंगा कि जॉन एलिया ने जो इस पर लाइन कही थी कि ये बोना मुआशरा और मैं बोना शायर, जिस मुआशरे के हीरोज बोने हो जाएं, तो आप सोचें फॉलोअर तो फिर हीरो से थोड़ा नीचे अचीव करता है, तो हमारे हीरोज ही पैदा नहीं हो गए। एंड नहीं हो रहे, कोई बात नहीं। इसीलिए मुझे अमूमन माजी की तरफ रुख करना पड़ता है कि कम से कम माजी में कुछ ऐसे बड़े नाम हो, वही बच्चों को चाम दें कि इतनी इतनी बुनियादी बातें सिर्फ लेंस ऑफ ब्रेन चेंज करने से हकीकत सामने खुल गई थी। लेकिन अब वो भी उनको इंस्पायर नहीं करता। क्यों? क्योंकि वो इतने ऑब्सेस्ड हैं सेमेस्टर सिस्टम से। खुदा की कसम, वो अल्लाह ना मिलने की इतनी फिक्र नहीं करते जितना वो मिड टर्म की करते। भाई जी, फॉर एन एग्जांपल, तो वो is another grand consequence. The last thing मैम निदा ने बहुत अच्छी कही कि टीचर रिलीजन कहीं ना कहीं डाल देता है, और वो ये बात नहीं जानता कि मजहब पहला अगर कोई कॉन्सिक्वेंस पैदा करता है माशरे में, तो वो अखलाकी होता है, साइंसी नहीं होता, समाजी होता है। और उस पर उस उस्ताद को भी कोट करते हुए सोचना चाहिए या ना कोट करें, क्योंकि हमारे मुआशरे में किसी किस्म का समाजी और अखलाकी इनकलाब दूर दूर तक नजर नहीं आ रहा, दो वी कोट रिलीजन सो मच। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Khurram. Wonderfully put. We have a question from the floor. Samir, go ahead, please.
Thanks for that, Abbas. It's not a question, it's a comment. Firstly, my congratulations to both Khurram and Neda and also Dr. Haque for a wonderful rendition of what our problems are. I'm not sure if at the micro level we understand that things are not dynamically opposite to each other. We've spoken about the self-development versus the mercantile success as polar opposites, perhaps. They are not exclusive. They can work in tandem. For a Renaissance man to be created, there has to be patronage. Patronage comes from wealth. यहाँ पे मसला ये है कि सिर्फ वेल्थ के लिए ही अगर आप कहते हैं कि फोकस जा रहा है, तो जैसे खुर्रम साहब ने कहा, there needs to be a distinction between पढ़ा लिखा इंसान and तहजीब याफ्ता इंसान. Being literate and educated are two entirely different things. Saying alhamdulillah and jazakallah and inshallah repeatedly without knowing and being one with Allah are two entirely different concepts. what has happened and will need to happen before any mentorship program succeeds is to create the environment to be able to listen to opposing views and to give the room and space for human beings to develop themselves. हम careers की बात कर रहे थे, हम कह रहे थे, Dr. Haque ने कहा, I would love to see world-class golfers. There can be many world-class golfers with the right training, etc., etc. But then who will handle the world-class parents who will say, "Ye to pura din golf course pe guzarta hai"? How can a Descartesian man flourish? I think, therefore, I am in an environment where everyone, and that means everyone and anyone from a generation above, has the comment, "I know better." Yahan koi Sukrat nahi hai. There is no one who says, "I know everything and I know nothing." And I think when we talk about all of these different, very minute, at the weed level policy implementations, mentorship programs, these are needles in a haystack. आपकी पूरी society को आपने तब्दील करना है, जो तब्दील हो चुकी है. I grew up in the 80s. I'm now 43 years old. This is a very different Pakistan to the Pakistan I grew up in. It is a short fix. It is a shortcut. Our source of knowledge is WhatsApp. And that in itself, I leave to all of you to consider. We don't find out things. We rely on Khala to tell us. Wow. And therein lies the question, why don't we make the effort to look? A mentor, in my opinion, has to advise the mentee to seek. Wow. And only to define and point in the right direction of what those sources of knowledge could be. And Neda very well said. यहाँ पे तो mentor भी जो है वो अपने ही minimes form करने में बैठे हुए हैं. इस्लामाबाद को देखिए, आज सियासत चल रही है. मैंने तो दीन की भी बात कर ली, सियासत की भी कर लेता हूँ 2 मिनट के लिए. I'm not here for that, but since I am, I might as well. How do you change the way people think when that Jahangir Khan and that Jansher Khan has now been changed, where people listen to, the greatest source of entertainment is the evening talk show? What happened? What happened to our society, and why did our generations let it come to this? And it was only because we conceded ground. ये वही ground है जो कहती है कि अगर इसने अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह नहीं कहा तो ये नमाज नहीं पढ़ता होगा, क्योंकि ये हमारे सामने नहीं जाता नमाज पढ़ने के लिए, तो ये अच्छा मुसलमान नहीं होगा. भाई, अल्लाह के काम अल्लाह पे छोड़ दीजिए, एजुकेशन के काम एजुकेटर्स पे छोड़ दीजिए, और वालदैन के काम वालदैन पे छोड़ दें. यहाँ पे तो वालदैन अपना काम नहीं कर रहे और एजुकेटर्स पे छोड़ रहे हैं. एजुकेटर्स जो है वो रिलीजियस लीडर्स बन के घूम रहे हैं, और जहां तक जो पॉलिटिशियंस का ताल्लुक है वो आप लोग मुझसे बेहतर जानते हैं. थैंक यू.
Samir Saab, that was tremendous. Thank you so much for the comments. We're just approaching time, so I want to go one by one for concluding remarks before we close this off. And I really appreciate all you taking out the time today. So let's start with Dr. Zunaira. If you're still with us, please go ahead.
Thank you, Abbas. Sorry. Thank you, Abbas. I think it was a very nice webinar, and I learned a lot from the other speakers. But my concluding remark jo hai wo, I think one thing I want to say to everybody who's present here, that if you are parents and eventually you're going to become parents, or you have young kids around you or youngsters around you, please help them at every level and any level that you can. And you don't need to make a very, very huge difference. You just need to help them understand themselves better. You need to help them take better decisions. You need to be there for them to answer their questions. Because as Khurram was saying, that, you know, they have mobile phones and everything, but they're not going out and seeking knowledge, and maybe they're not inspired enough to do that. Various different reasons, that's another debate altogether. But I think mostly what young kids or youngsters are actually looking for, they're looking for mentorship. They're looking for inspirations from their elders. And most of us as parents, unfortunately, are failing in that, because as parents, we feel that our main responsibility is just providing them with good schooling. We provide them good education. We give them enough, we give them a shelter, we give them clothes, and we help them do all of that, and that's where responsibility ends. But I think our responsibility goes far beyond that. We have to help them become critical thinkers. We have to help them in their reading habits. They are not going to go out and read books if they don't see you reading books. They are not going to go out and find new material and knowledge because if they have nobody who they can discuss it with. So if you have those people around you, those youngsters around you, create an environment where they can come, they can question, they can talk to you without any fear about their fears, about their thoughts, about what they want to learn. And I think if all of us can play a role of a mentor to these kids, to these young people around us, then that will make a huge difference. So my message is just for either you're a parent or you have young kids around you, this is what you can do at the grassroots level. And I think that will make a huge difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zunaira. I really appreciate you taking the time out, and I wish you all the best with MeraFuture. I think you guys are doing tremendous work. So Godspeed. Okay, let's have Khurram by next. Go ahead, sir.
I'll come back to the main title. Sameer साहब बहुत खूबसूरत गुफ्तगू आपने फरमाई और हमारा आज का मौजू मेंटरशिप है. तो हम जानते हैं हमारी तहजीब में उस्ताद उस आदमी को कहते थे जो बेताब रहता है जब तक उसका तालिब इल्म उससे आगे ना निकल जाए, और उस्ताद वो आदमी नहीं होता जो बोनों की फैक्ट्री लगाए या ऐसा इल्म पैदा करे जिसकी बुनियाद हाफजे के सूल पर खड़ी हो. और दांते ने कहा था मेरा उस्ताद तो वो है जो सिर्फ खिड़की खोलता है कि बाहर देख लो, वो मुझे मजबूर नहीं करता कि देखना क्या है. और उस हवाले से हमें बड़े पैमाने पे सोचना चाहिए. और लास्टली, once I was on a television and I had to say कि वाकई मेरा बेटा शाह हुसैन तारिक अजीज साहब के बगैर बड़ा होगा. वो टीवी पर पानी का कूलर दे के आपका इल्म भी बढ़ाते थे और इज्जत भी. वो लोग जो समीर साहब ने फरमाया हम शाम को देखते थे और बच्चे वैसे बनना चाहते थे कि यार इतने अशार तो उस शायर को नहीं आते. या जब उर्दू लड़खड़ाती थी हमारी पूरी कौम की बल्कि हिंद की, तो हम ज़िया महिउद्दीन के घर दस्तक देते थे. We have no second name in queue right now in a nation of 22 करोड़. एक बंदा हमारे पास नहीं है जिसकी तरफ हम रुक करके देख सकें कि आप बताइए पढ़ते कैसे हैं. और वो इतनी बार ऊपर सेट करते थे. हम मुश्ताक यूसुफी साहब की बातों पे खिलखिला के हंसते थे. हमें अनवर मसूद साहब मजाक में हंसाते थे. इंपीरियलिज्म पर लस्सी और चाय लिख के दिखाते थे और आज हम ऑब्सीन कंटेंट पर हंस रहे होते हैं. तो हमारी डी जनरेशन जैसे समय इतनी लेयर्स में फैल चुकी है और उसकी बुनियादी वजह अगर मुझे नॉट बिकॉज आई एम स्पीकिंग फॉर दिस वेबिनार, मैं हमेशा ये कहता हूँ कि वो लोग चले गए जिनको देखकर हमारे अंदर वैसा बनने की कुव्वत पैदा होती हो. वो जो बाबा बुल्ले शाह साहब ने बार बार अपने मुर्शद के दरवाजे पे दस्तक दी, उन्होंने पूछा था कौन है, तो बुल्ले शाह कहते थे यही पूछने आता हूँ, यही पूछने आता हूँ मैं कौन हूँ, बाकी इल्म मुआश ये सब तो तय हो ही जाता है. छल्ली वाला, सब्जी वाला, करियाने, पाकिस्तान के अमीर तरीन लोग हम सब जानते हैं वो इतने पढ़े तो नहीं, मैं टॉप नाम भी ले अगर फॉर एन एग्जाम्पल हम रफली बात करें, मगर वो सवाल पूछते ही नहीं. और वो लोग भी चले गए सब छोड़कर जो शाम को बैठ के जाविया में चाय के कप पे पढ़ाते थे कि अच्छे बनो, नेकियां तकसीम करो, सच बोला करो, पढ़ते रहा करो, रशियंस को पढ़ा करो. हमने वो सब मुअत्तल कर दिया और हमने आम और छोटी सोच पर खुद को तस्कीन देने के लिए रजामंद कर लिया अपने आप को. और ये बहुत घनौना जुल्म है. नदीम उलक साहब ने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा है कि वी नीड अ रेनेसांस, हमें एक नशाते सानिया की जरूरत है. और जैसे समीर साहब ने फरमाया वो मादी सतहों की नहीं हो, वो इंसानी सतह की हो. बाकी चीजें हम इंशाल्लाह बाद में खुद तय कर सकते हैं. शुक्रिया.
Beautiful, sir. Beautiful. Thank you so much for the insights today. And I look forward to taking this into round 2 with you in person very soon. Neda, please go ahead for concluding remarks.
Thank you, Khurram. So I'm going to come back to the example of the Challiwala. And I think the Challiwala also has something to teach, like all of us do. Heroes are not necessarily people who are movers and shakers of the country or the universe. A hero is there in each one of us. And so if we have a mentorship system in this country where we have each one teach one going on, जो भी आपको पता है, जो भी आपके skills हैं, जिसमें आपकी महारत है, अगर वो आप किसी तरह किसी और को inspire कर सकें उस कहानी से or active teaching से, you know, stories also inspire. It's not just active teaching that inspires. And so all of us can be in this together. We have heroes all around us every day. We just have to find the will to inspire and to be inspired. And I think that's something I want to link up to the excellence that Dr. Nadeem Haque spoke about. So yes, I totally agree that we need to chase excellence, and we need to really, the drive within us should be towards excellence rather than money. Because if there is excellence, if we are great at what we do and we have found our identity, whether it's a personal identity or professional identity through what we do, then we've established ourselves in this world and the money will follow. So it's not like excellence follows money, but it's money that follows excellence. So I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you Abbas again for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Neda, and everybody else. It's been a great pleasure speaking with you all, and for sticking around till the end here. There are several issues at hand here: culture, education, inspiration. But I feel like as long as we have folks like Neda, Khurram, Dr. Zunaira, and so on, we always have some room for optimism. So I hope we can take this forward. So thank you so much for joining. And this is the end of our discussion. Appreciate you all, and have a good day, everybody.